When I look at McLaren's first real appearance with their 2026 car, I don't see panic, I see intent. But I also see a warning sign. Because while McLaren showed us just how ambitious their new machine really is, the opening phase of testing also exposed how brutally unforgiving this new era of Formula One is going to be. This was not a smooth debut, and it was not meant to be. McLaren arrived late to preseason testing by choice, not because they were unprepared, but because they believed time spent developing was more valuable than time spent circulating. That decision told me a lot. It told me McLaren believes their 2026 concept is strong enough to justify risk, but it also meant that when problems arrived, there was nowhere to hide. Let's break down what actually happened and why this test mattered far more than lap times. McLaren's new car, the MCL40, didn't hit the track until partway through day 3 of the test. That wasn't an accident. With teams allowed to run on only 3 of the 5 days, McLaren deliberately sacrificed early track time to maximize development back at the factory. No filming day shakedown, no rushed installation laps, just a calculated delay. From an engineering perspective, this makes sense. The earlier you lock your car specification, the more development ceiling you give up. But the trade-off is brutal. Once you start running, every problem becomes urgent. And that's exactly what happened. And then came day 2, and with it reality. Oscar Piastri's second day ended early. Not with a crash, not with a visible failure, but with something far worse in testing terms, a fuel system issue that required the car to be fully stripped down. That's not a quick fix, that's a garage shutting problem. Piastri logged just 48 laps, roughly a third of what Mercedes was managing per day. Now, this wasn't catastrophic, but it was costly. At this stage of development, track time is currency. Every lap builds understanding of cooling behavior, ride height sensitivity, energy deployment, and aero stability. McLaren lost a chunk of that learning window, and crucially, they lost flexibility. Here's the key point many fans miss. Testing isn't about finding speed, it's about mapping behavior. Mercedes already knows how its car reacts to setup changes. McLaren is still discovering those boundaries. Mark Temple was right. Every minute mattered here, and McLaren knows they're starting slightly behind the curve in real-world correlation. Not because the concept is weak, but because time is finite. So if the running wasn't ideal, what did the car itself tell us? Visually, the real MCL40 revealed far more than the launch renders suggested. The first thing that caught my eye was the nose. Slimmer at the tip, lighter, designed to aggressively open airflow underneath and feed the central floor. That kind of geometry isn't accidental. It's the product of months of CFD iteration. Underneath, the nose profile appears V-shaped, opening the central wing section and improving airflow quality toward the underfloor. That tells me McLaren is prioritizing floor efficiency over brute force wing load, a very 2026 way of thinking. The front wing is where McLaren really showed intent. The horizontal fin on the outer end plate immediately stood out. It's aggressive, more so than some rivals, and clearly designed to manage tire wake and seal the underside of the wing. This is risky territory. The FIA has been clear about limiting outwash. How this interpretation survives scrutiny will be fascinating. But if it stays legal, it's clever. Directing airflow around the tire square is critical in this era, and McLaren is clearly trying to control that turbulence rather than fight it. But the most interesting details weren't flashy, they were subtle. McLaren's bargeboard region is unusually restrained. Instead of large horizontal slats, they've opted for smaller, carefully positioned slots. That tells me they're chasing precision rather than brute extraction. The front of the floor curves upward, mimicking an additional vane effect, helping draw airflow out of the footplate area. At the brakes, both front and rear ducting shows heavy segmentation. This isn't just cooling, it's airflow management. Containing tire wake is everything in 2026, and McLaren has clearly invested heavily here. Mechanically, one decision stood out. McLaren switched from a pull rod to a push rod front suspension. That's not philosophical. That's aerodynamic. Pushrod allows better airflow off the front wing, but it also increases anti-dive, which raises a red flag. Lando Norris struggled early last season with front-end feel. Increased anti-dive improves aero stability under braking, but it can reduce driver confidence. McLaren will need to manage this carefully. And while McLaren was learning, one team looked frighteningly ready. Mercedes has emerged as the most prepared team in testing. Not fastest, prepared. Long runs, full race simulations, minimal issues. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli have traded headline lap times, but that's irrelevant. What matters is understanding. The W17 looks stable, predictable, robust, and in a brand new regulation set, that's lethal. McLaren knows this. They've said it openly. Barcelona has been cold, unusually so. Even Russell said it's among the coldest track conditions he's driven in. That limits setup learning. So McLaren isn't chasing optimization here. They're exploring operating windows, ride height sensitivity, rake behavior. And that brings us to the biggest philosophical shift. The MCL40 is running noticeable rake, rear higher than front. That vanished during the ground effect era. But flatter floors demand different behavior. Where the sweet spot lies, nobody knows yet. McLaren is relearning this from scratch, and that's why they're not panicking.